Hello, my name is Tracey Bretag and I'm an Associate Professor in Higher Education and the Director of the Office for Academic Integrity at the University of South Australia. Well, we've always had challenges, so that's nothing new. But I think recently we're having some really quite significantly different challenges. So historically we've dealt with plagiarism, we've dealt with students who are perhaps colluding or assisting each other too much in exams or working too closely together on assignments. In the 90s we saw really people being very concerned about students not knowing how to acknowledge sources that they'd got from the internet. So we've been dealing with that over the last 20 or 30 years and I think making some really good progress. But there's been a really big qualitative shift in recent years to our biggest concern now, I think, is students outsourcing their work, either their assignments, their courses, or their whole degree program in its entirety. So now you can hire someone to sit your exams for you. You can pay someone to write your essay or your assignment. And it isn't just essays and written work. You can pay someone to do pretty much anything, to do your placement, for example, your practical placement in a work situation. You can pay someone, as I said, to sit your exams. You can pay someone to do your practical reflection. So it's actually a really huge challenge because assessment alone is not going to deal with that issue. So we're dealing with all the same small, relatively small issues that we've dealt with for a long time, but I think the biggest challenge we're facing right now is contract cheating. Well, I think this course is quite different to anything we've seen before. So in the past, people were very focused on avoiding plagiarism or on getting our writing skills correct. Or there was a big focus, as soon as we talked about academic integrity, it was about, I'll teach you how to reference. Now, when you're dealing with students who are outsourcing their work, teaching them how to reference isn't going to help. So this course is going to really address things right at the core, talking to students about their fundamental, their intrinsic motivation for being a student. And not just students either. This course is quite different in that it also provides a lot of support and a lot of learning for staff, both teachers and support staff. So I think what we recognise through this course is we need to change the culture of the university. We need to change the culture on campus. And that means more than just teaching a student how to reference, more than just teaching a student how to use sources or how to paraphrase or summarise. It goes to the heart of what we're trying to achieve in higher education. And I think this course is going to address that. Well, I think historically, traditionally, universities have put all the responsibility and all the blame on students. Students need to learn to reference, students need to learn to paraphrase, students need to learn sources, how to use sources. They need to know how to acknowledge, they need to know how to develop an argument, and all of that is true. That hasn't changed. But what we haven't done, I think, historically, is recognise that it's a multi-stakeholder issue. Students need to have staff, both teaching staff and administrative staff, role modelling good practices in terms of integrity. So for example, if a teacher is putting their PowerPoints up in a lecture and there's no references there, what sort of role model is that? If an administrative officer is allowing students to be admitted to the university when they haven't actually quite got the appropriate credits, or perhaps because they're a friend or a family member of an influential donor. I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways that all of us need to model integrity. So I think this course will address that issue, and I think move from that historical focus just on students' responsibility to looking at the broader culture. Of course we need to talk about changing culture, but a lot of staff members themselves actually don't know how to reference sources appropriately. And I can tell you that quite honestly because I just edited a very large volume by experts on academic integrity, on the topic of academic integrity, and very many of those authors were still confused about how much source they could use without quoting, about how much they had to paraphrase, about whether that online source needed this type of reference. So we all need training in this area. And I was fascinated recently, I went and did a professional development session for staff at my own university, and it was for administrative staff, and they were fascinated. They wanted themselves to know, what is the breach process? What happens to a student when they get caught for plagiarising? What happens to a student if they've been caught for cheating? They themselves didn't know, and they wanted to and needed to know. So I think often we forget our administrative staff, our support staff, they're at the front lines talking to students more than any of us. So I think that's really important as well. So it's about training, it's about changing culture, and it's about all of us coming together to learn those skills.